Hi everyone, welcome back to my garage. I am the Motorcycle Rescuer and this is Motorcycle Rescuer. Okay guys, you're here in the Motorcycle Rescuer's bedroom. Don't get excited. Here's our rebuild kit for our tap. I already took the actual diaphragm side off last time. I'm now taking the front part off because we have parts to change that as well. These can be quite fiddly, so be careful. But basically, take something off, replace it as you see it for the new one, and you should be good to go. With the spring here, give it a tiny bit of a stretch back, nothing major, just a little bit before putting it in, and that will help it to have good suction. So here we go, we'll take this off, we'll look at what's inside and we'll see how we go from there. So it was due a rebuild guys. That seal there is very plasticky and quite thin actually. The new one's a fair amount thicker. That will be better for it. The disc is okay overall, but yeah, it's worth changing anyway. All you do with this one is you push it in, you put the seal around the edge here, like that, and then the disc sits in there. That's what turns the fuel on or off. So at the moment the one of the lines is on, one of the lines is off. That's how it works. And then the suction is on the other side. So swap them parts over for now, and then we'll be able to push this side back together and get that sorted. So that bit's all good. It's quite stiff guys, but that's because the new O-ring is quite solid, so that will loosen up after a little while. Keep it simple. Next part's out, it's already in one piece, it's already got a new O-ring on the end. That O-ring goes in that way. Seat the gasket nice and gently. There is a retaining pin on the other side potentially. New screws, push them in, lock it down, give the spring a little bit of a stretch the other way like I said, chuck it in and it should be fine. Okay guys, so that's the rebuild. Nice new screws. You'll know if it's working by sucking on the pipe and you feel some suction. One of the new screws is a bit long on this side here, but it did kind of work in the end, so that's okay. You got to make sure it's really sandwiched, not like, don't go too nuts, but make sure it is sandwiched, because if there any air escapes from here then it won't have good suction. So make sure they're all nipped down quite well, and that's it. Again, suck on the pipe, make sure you feel and hear that noise, and if you do then it should be working as it's meant to be. But on this occasion I'm going to be strictly testing it on the fuel. I'm going to be putting fuel through the pipes and testing the suction. I'm not going to be just assuming that this one is good to go on this occasion, because the bike desperately needs to be back on track and it desperately needs to be sold soon. Okay, yeah, so once again welcome back guys. You lot seem quite excited about some of these builds, which mimics how I feel. I'm at my kind of everyday job in the week, sitting there thinking I can't wait to get back to this one, funny enough, and the Gilera DNA. I'm a bit over this one, but yeah, it mimics exactly how I feel, and I hope bits turn up, and I spend all week just excited about what's turning up. So let's look at what's turning up. By the way, Pepsi Max is provided by John Trey this weekend. John Trey, thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate that. McDonald's is not mine, I promise. Okay, so what have we got? We've got the new intake boot for the Gilera DNA. Alright, new intake boot. Two new OEM quality valves. Two, bloody hell, what are they? They are float valves for the er500. Second-hand carb for the DNA 125. Left switch gear, for the Force 50cc 2-stroke. Second hand coil for the Typhoon 125, new spark plug for the Typhoon 125, rebuilt suction tap for the er500, and some fresh oil all over for the er500. So I'm not going to film much of this today, but this is going to involve me putting the OEM quality valves in the carbs, putting the carbs back on this bike, setting the tank up. I'll put the airbox back on anyway, and then I'll set the tank up appropriately on this bike, and then we'll do exactly what we did last week. Now, Scooty, you mentioned why I didn't put enough oil in, as if it was a bad thing. I'm not silly, guys. I know exactly what I'm doing. I put enough oil in to come halfway up the window so that I could keep an eye on it all day. Of course, if that oil rose, then we were still having issues. Yeah, so, you know, 20 years experience in the game, I do know what I'm doing. So when people throw out certain comments, just think about that first, that I have, you know, a fair amount of experience, even if I'm not a professional mechanic. Secondly, the second-hand carb seems okay for the DNA. I'm really hoping that just kind of sorts itself out, picks itself up, and then that will be a making safe and beautifying project. I know she wants a kind of dark blue. I'm not the best at spraying, everyone knows that, so I don't know what I can achieve. Part of me wants to let her do it herself, but otherwise a really dark blue black I could possibly manage. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be okay. Some high build primer and some dent filling might sort that out. I don't know why I'm saying her, Amanda, sorry Amanda. And then I think she just wants this ready on the road and safe, and that is exactly what we can achieve if that new carb sorts it out. We can easily put on the new switch gear, that's no issue at all. And then for this little bad boy, we've got the left switch gear over there, that's great. I've got a brand new battery for it, and I'd like to get it down to some sort of heating element like a hairdryer and take the stickers off today if possible. And then I can use my drill to put some cutting compound on it and see if we can get it a bit more shinier white. So interesting. This is absolutely priority number one. I need to get new oil in. I need to take the old oil filter off, drain that out, new oil in, again up to kind of halfway line. I'm going to bench test the tap, make sure it is working on suction, of course, and then we'll go from there as to what. Well, basically we're going to let it sit all day today. So far, every time it's overwhelmed itself and it's filled its oil up, I've known by the end of the day. So I'll know by the end of today, but I'll of course give it overnight, test it again tomorrow, check that it's running properly, and then this will be up for sale if by miracle it is all good to go. So I think I'm going to test that petrol suction valve right now and see if that's working basically. Okay, so here's the bench test. When I turn the fuel on, none should come out at all until I suck on the black line, the suction line, and then fuel should squirt out. So keep an eye on it. So fuel on. We're desperately hoping fuel doesn't trickle out of here. It shouldn't do. Only when we suck on this line should some come out. I would say that was a fix there, guys. So now if you left that on, it wouldn't keep coming, it wouldn't keep going until the engine's back on. So that's definitely a win there. That's a rebuilt tap that's ready to go. So let me get the carbs, let me get the new float valves in and the carbs back on, and the airbox back on as well, fuel tank on top, fill up the fuel tank, fill up the oil, and then we'll just have it sit all day and see if we're kind of back to where we were. I have to be honest, we don't even know anymore if this thing will start. It's kind of almost hydro-locked itself 3 or 4 times now. They're pretty robust, these engines. It shouldn't be a huge problem. I do expect it to start up and be okay, but you just never know these days. I bench tested the float heights last week all day. They were fine. So I'm not going to mess with the float heights. I'm just going to swap the valves and double check that. And yeah, okay. I'll chuck them on. You'll see that that's done. And then we'll push the bike aside, leave it for the rest of the day, and make sure it's not. I mean, we know it's not going to be tipping, guys, because we know that the fuel isn't going to be flowing, and that's where the problem lies. That little one I put on last week, they didn't even message me back, by the way. It was just free flowing, so they pretend it's a suction fuel tap, and it wasn't. It just free flowed. So I wasted all my oil last week because they sold cheap crap. Which, to be fair, I should have tested. I should know with that stuff. But they're a bit sly, and there's not much you can do about that. Leave a bit of negative feedback, and hope that no one else makes the same mistake. Let me get this buttoned back up, because this bike needs to be, if it's all good tomorrow morning, it's going to be a quick clean and polish, some cutting compound, and advertised. It's kind of my big money maker at the moment, and it is in great condition, but it's just a bit tainted for me at the moment because of how much work has gone into it. So, carbs with new float valves. At this stage, it would be so easy to throw the airbox on and forget that we need to top up the coolant. That will be a pain in the arse. Top up the coolant now. So I said to you guys last week I didn't like these new containers. I spoke to Smith & Allen this week and said they're aware that I use them on my channel. They said it's a temporary measure. Because of the virus, they couldn't get the old ones. So they will be going back to the old bottles. Basically, the old bottles had a better nose on it, and it had a scale on it, which just makes life easier. At the moment, I'm transferring to a different bottle for that luxury. So soon their bottles will be going back to normal for anyone who's half interested out there. I've done a lot of research into their oils. They're a British company, which I like, and their oils are top quality, in my opinion. There are some dodgy reviews. I saw a few dodgy reviews actually, stating they seem watered down. I can assure you they're not watered down. You gotta let the oil settle. So at the moment I put in 2.5 litres. I'm gonna let the oil settle, give it a bit of a wobble, let it all get into the right places. Then I'll top it up to kind of in the middle before putting on the tank, because I'm not turning it over, it won't circulate at that stage, if that kind of makes sense. I'm just going to be testing the drip, which isn't going to happen, guys. You know, in my head's dead set now, got it sorted. It's not going to have the drip because, of course, we know that it's on the suction now, so it will only be sucking fuel when it's actually running. So we're kind of good to go there, actually, if we're being honest. So, guys, we're buttoned up, and there's fuel in there, and there's oil. The oil is up to this level at the moment. You can see the air bubble. That's what I did last week, but I am going to try and fire up. I had these cool fuel lines lying around. Definitely not stolen off Amanda. So I threw them on. I'm using them lines because the old line I had was terrible. I need to fire it up and kind of see what's going on now, because it's been on and off so many times. I don't know what's dripping anymore and what's not. So this will be an attempt to fire it up, actually. So let's get some. Well, there's nothing I really need to do. Let me, I guess, press the button and hope. Last time I tried to start it, it was locked. There's no fuel in the carb, so it's going to need time to suction in. That's annoying. That battery was fully charged. Right, I need to go and get the car. We need to put the big battery on it. Okay, big old car battery. Let's see what happens. I'm going to try putting in more fuel and running on the on instead of the reserve. I'm curious. So we're running on the on tap. It seems a bit happier. I'm gonna let it idle for a few minutes. I'll leave the camera on. We'll let it idle for a few minutes, see what happens. The oil's circulating. I'll top that up in a bit. It's not overly smoking, which is good. The exhaust downpipes are a bit smoky where I've spilt so much crap on them. But let's get it up to temperature. Then we'll top up the oil appropriately, and then we'll leave it sit for the rest of the day to see, you know, what's going on. So it started that spitting again there at the end, and the throttle cable is caught somewhere. You can see when I turned right, it was revving. So it's the spitting that winds me up. The weird backfire. I'm gonna give it a couple of minutes, then top up the oil, and then we'll start it again. Okay, guys. So while the er5's over there winding me up, let's move to the Gilera. So we have our new intake manifold. Now this is a Gilera intake manifold, but it has 2 suction ports. I'll block this suction port off. That's not hard. You put a little bit of line on, put a screw in. That's done. And this is the one that's missing from in there, which is the one that was needed for the suction to make sure we've got fuel coming through. Basically, I'll be switching this over in a minute, but my first port of call is to chuck on the new carb, run the external fuel tank, see if it idles, see if it warms, and see if it revs. I'm not going to let it get over, temperature because the coolant's not in here. But if it appears to rev properly, then this will be about nipping it back up, getting coolant in later today, and getting it kind of closer to being runnable. So let me chuck on the new carb. It's over here. I showed you guys earlier. It's a second-hand carb, but it does seem much better. It just, it seems to be doing its job. So I am going to chuck that on, run the external fuel tank there, and hope that we're doing okay. I'm going to go and get its own battery because that's charged. Might as well run off its own battery, and if by way of miracle it is doing what it's meant to do and revving later, like I said, top up the coolant. I have to look at the brakes. The rear's not great. I don't know about the front yet, if I'm being honest. It doesn't seem terrible, but it'd be really nice to be able to give this almost a test drive later. If that works, then it'll be about beautifying this thing. Now the frame, I don't like the frame colour. I could quite easily hammerite black the frame. That's probably the best thing to do by this bike. Just this part, hammerite black. I don't know what Amanda's view is, but this is bad. This part of the frame, and the rest of the bike's going black. It doesn't look good. It looks like primer. Yeah, I'll talk to Amanda. Hammerite black. I'll talk to her about what colour she has in mind. I think she said gloss black, but even then, guys, I'm not great with gloss. I'm just not. So I don't know. But all of these kind of gaps, and I'm just not good with the fine putty work. That's my problem. I'll tell you what we'll do is let's get this carb on. Let's see if it kind of revs, and then we'll look at what the bodywork. I mean, it's nuts to look at the bodywork at this stage. How's the oil looking on the er5? Yeah, it's back up to nearly halfway. That's great. I'll top that up a little bit, but there won't be any fuel spilling because the fuel's not coming out like that. In regards to the little back spit, I don't know. Possibly, I don't think I used the new coils, did I? So I'll possibly switch over to the new coils. Maybe get them spark plugs out, give them a clean, because they would have been, the oil would have come right up, wouldn't it? It possibly soaked them. That might solve that out. But for now, I just want to make sure the tank's not dripping into the oil. Okay, guys, so we've got a bit of fuel. We've got the new carb in there. I'll chuck the airbox on loosely. We've got the battery back in there. We'll go for our first start up in 1 moment. Okay, airbox loosely on, fuel loosely on, electric loosely on, bike loosely on. That drip is coolant, guys, it's not fuel. There's coolant coolant hose down there. Say we were one step in the right direction there, guys. Yeah. Wow, what's next? Oh, hot. Result. Amanda, let me know in the comments how you feel. I'll check on the new intake manifold and we'll get this kind of buttoned up in regards to the fueling system and stuff, and then I'm going to look at the coolant system, try and get that all reconnected. I'm going to test that with water, not with coolant, because I hate wasting coolant. And yeah, kind of they're just the next steps really. Let's keep going at it. That sounds great to me.